Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. It is 6:37. I told you that wasn't going to take long. We are back in regular session. Agenda item 4B, consideration and possible action approving placement and use of a mobile office at the 1000 block of West 2nd Street and South Velasco. Council, I will entertain a motion.
Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the placement and use of mobile office for the city to issue permits for 90 days for the use of this mobile office.
We have a motion to approve by Councilman Matamoros. Is there a second?
Yeah, I'll second.
Second by Councilman Rosso. Council, is there any discussion needed? Hearing none. All those in favor state aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries unanimous. Thank you, gentlemen. Agenda item 4C, consideration and possible action approving the contract with Amerisco for the implementation of an advanced metering infrastructure system and meter replacement project under Local Government Code 302. Mr. Petty.
Yes, sir. As you know, we've had 2 workshops concerning this item, and using TIPS cooperative purchasing, the city selected and signed a project development agreement with Amerisco in February of 2024 under a process called performance contracting. PC is enabled through Texas Local Government Code 302 and allows cities to implement capital-intensive improvements utilizing energy and operational savings and revenue increases from inaccurate meters to offset the costs of the improvements, and it's guaranteed. As part of the PDA, Amerisco's scope of work included evaluation, design, and development of solutions for the above-mentioned areas as detailed audit, including site visits, meter testing, utility database analysis, and technical evaluation of technology, cost, and overall solution design. The scope and pricing were developed. All aspects of the turnkey solution implementation are covered, i.e. engineering, design, selection, and bidding of technologies and products, installation, software integration, data conversion, and transfer permits, training, and commissioning. Through the performance contract process, Amerisco guarantees the accuracy of the meters, which ensures capturing the loss of revenue from meter inaccuracies. If the guarantees are not met, Amerisco will write a check for the shortfalls or replace the failed equipment. A third-party licensed professional engineer in Texas validated and reviewed the calculations and the guarantee. If approved, the contract will only be validated after financing has been secured and a notice to proceed has been issued from the city. The turnkey project cost is $3,480,210 with an O&M cost savings of $93,000 a year. Capture of lost water and unaccounted for revenues due to inaccurate meters equals over $305,000 in year 1. Currently, staff is receiving loan offers and terms in the amount of $3.5 million that we'll be bringing to council at a later date. Mr. Nobles is here with Amerisco tonight to answer any questions y'all may have about this project.
Council, before we move on, I will entertain a motion.
Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the contract with Amerisco.
We have a motion to approve by Councilman Matamoros. Is there a second? Second. Second by Councilman Rosso. That gave you heartburn.
Yes.
All right, council, we've had 2 very good work sessions on this with a lot of discussion, a lot of questions answered. Is there anything else that council would like to discuss or any other questions that have come up that haven't been answered yet?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
I got one One question. I was concerned about the budget that we had talked about when it was presented to us. It was presented as conservative, and we need to hold back and be careful this year because of the hurricanes, and we don't know what's coming up with the hurricane insurance and what we're going to have to pay, and do we have any more hurricanes coming? And you know, it sounded like a tight budget, and now it's a good. I like the upgrade. That I know it needs to happen, but it's the timing just sounded, you know, conservative, and then you get a price of $3 million plus 3-4, and I just want to make sure. Now you said we was going to be applying for a loan and something like that, and the guarantee. And about the company was gonna give me that one more time.
Yes, sir, and it's a budget neutral item. It's designed to support itself and pay for itself. And yes, part of the Marisco contract is if it doesn't meet their projections, yes, they cover the shortfalls of that. Yes, the city we're currently looking for options for funding this project, and I know that approving this tonight basically gives him authority to issue a PO to the metering company because it takes a little bit to get the meters all together. But this contract doesn't move forward unless the city has financing in place and issues a notice to proceed following that. We are looking at this project will take 5 to 6 months once the meters are here to be put into place. So we're looking at financing that will be designed to start at the completion of the project. 12 months from that date will be the first payment, which will be your first year will be an interest-only payment, and then following that will be the full payments. That way we don't have any budget shortfalls where we're having to look for funds to cover it because the loan didn't take place 5 to 6 months prior to the revenue generating meters in place. So we're being diligent, me and the interim finance director, on finding the financing that makes sense for this project. But it is designed to cover itself and pay for itself.
Thank you.
Council, any other questions?
I have a couple other questions.
Yes, sir.
So I have a question as it relates to the sense of urgency to this matter. And so, you know, I started asking some questions with City Hall staff when this came up back in February. And I was trying to get an idea of how bad our water meter systems really are. And the conversation I had with Mr. Petty was that the water meters, I'm told, are working pretty effectively, but there's probably maybe a 10% and maybe conservatively speaking 25% of the meters that are not working or that seem to be faulty in one way or another. And so that tells me there's 75% up to 90% of the meters that are working. And I'm just wondering, if we have a flat tire and you have 4 tires, do you buy a whole new car or do you just fix that tire? And so I'm curious, has city staff looked at just filling in the gap of, in the interest of budgets are tight, as was exclaimed several times during the budget process, and then here we are looking to spend $3.5 million. I can imagine, I can understand and appreciate if this was a hemorrhaging problem where 90% of the meters were busted. But when we're at 10% and maybe up to 25%, I'm wondering, has an alternative solution been pursued to look at simply just fixing that flat tire, that 25%, that 1 in 4, or for that matter, that 1/10? And so before I want to green light any kind of pursuit of $3.5 million to buy a new car here, I'd like to know what it would take to just fix the flat tire. And that's even generous. We don't even know that the tire is actually flat. It might be less than the 25%. And so that's my question here, either for Mr. Petty and/or with the representative from Amoresco.
I think Mr. Nobles will come up and answer some questions because his firm did do the study on the meters.
Thank you. Good question, and appreciate the question itself. So actually, the way I would phrase your question about what's broken, so you actually have 100% of the meters that are reading less, right? So what happens is we tested the meters, and it's not that you could go out and fix 10%, because what's happening is every meter is supposed to be reading 100% accuracy, which means every citizen pays their fair share. What you have is you have citizens whose meters are reading 80% accurate, 90% accurate. Some are actually reading nothing on the low flow side. And so you can't just patch those, because the average meter is reading, I think, 90% accurate, which means it may be failing on the low flow side, but reading 100% on the high flow side. So what you've got here, and remember from a financial question, I appreciate the financial question a lot. This is revenue that you're currently losing as a city. So you are paying to treat water, you're paying to read meters manually right now, which is at the tune of almost $100,000 to read meters in operational costs. So that's money you're throwing out the door, whereas this is actually going to read the meters every day, give your citizens the transparency, the data that they're looking for, improve your operational services for your citizens. They'll be able to see that data, take matters in their own hand, figure out if they've got a leak or continuous water usage, kind of set some alerts. But the revenue that you're losing is actually new revenue, that the only way you're going to collect that revenue is by doing the meter replacement project. So you can't, it's not in the budget right now. It will never be in the budget, because the only way you capture it is put a brand new meter in the ground that reads accurately, if that makes sense.
I hear what you're saying. I understand what you're saying. It makes sense in terms of what your point you're trying to make, but it doesn't make sense from what I've heard. And so what I've heard is that the city meters are working just fine at 75%. Not 100% of them are busted, either reading too high or reading too low. What you're describing actually is more alarming, to say that really we have 100% dysfunctional meters, where we are either reading too high or too low. I'm not sure that we're strictly just reading too low. We might be reading too high. But my conversations with city staff, outside of yourself, who's the contractor bidding this work, so, forgive my cynicism, it's in your interest to say, hey, they're all busted, right? And so I'm over here just trying to play devil's advocate and lean on really trying to make sure that the city's best interests are served. And so when I hear city staff saying, hey, listen, for all the rereads that we've had throughout the years, last 2 or 3 years, that 75 to 90% of those have come back legit. And that 10% to 25% maybe, they had to go out and get the meter, get it tested and or replaced. And so that's where I'm kind of like, okay, who do we believe here, right? And so, again, I'm leaning on just trying to be cost savvy about this. And if there's an approach on your side to offer a solution at maybe the identified 10 to 25% of meters that have been faulty, but it's my understanding that 10 to 25% has been already been identified and have been replaced. So I'm just kind of curious, what are we fixing? And I know it's very alarming to hear, hey, we're losing all this revenue, but when I'm hearing from staff that, hey, the meter reads are coming back legit, what do we say to that?
So you have two different, let me address that question, because you have two different kind of questions there.
Sure.
First of all, mechanical meters, which you have in the system, I've never really, I've seen them twice in my career of 25 years doing this, read high. And it's only one particular brand that actually is out there that reads high, and you don't have that brand, right? All mechanical meters, as they age, water goes through them, quality of water, they slow down. So they read less than what it is. And when I say read less, that means they're not accurately recording the water that goes through it. When staff makes a comment about they went out and reread the meter, if the meter said it's got 10,000 gallons on it, that meter matches what the meter reader read. It says 10,000 gallons, but that doesn't mean that 10,000 gallons went through the meter. What I'm telling you based on third-party testing is you pumped 11,000 gallons through that meter. The meter only recorded 10,000. So staff is correct in saying that the meter read that they physically see on the meter says 10,000 gallons, but the meter itself was not recording the water that was going through it. So out of the 68 that we tested, roughly 29 of those out of 68 would be considered failures for standpoint, basically. So the other ones are reading fairly average, but you still have over, a high percentage. And when you extrapolate that out, you can't necessarily pinpoint the meters that have failed. So the idea is plus the other thing that we look at is these meters, some of these meters, current meters that you have in the ground may only be good for, their warranty may only be good for 500,000 gallons of water on a typical 5/8 by 3/4. You've got meters that are reading 1.8 million gallons, so they're way past their useful life, which is why we see the decline. And some of these meters, like I said, they may read 100% at the average flow, but on the low flow, they're reading 0, which means you're losing all of those low flow devices that you have in your house right now, and you're not picking up. That's why that revenue is where it is.
So
Yep.
those of us that have the old pipes in our house where we don't have much pressure, we're getting a good rate on our water.
You are. You could be. The other thing I will tell you about this is one of the other reasons we're trying to replace these that are in the ground is because you're trying to get a system that is getting away from the manual read. So you don't want to go retrofit, and put as your analysis used a tire, you don't want to put an old tire on a brand new car, right? And so what you're trying to do is get that new tire with the new radio that's going to be able to read these signals manually. Instead of manually, they're going to now read them electronically and provide that data.
And one issue I have with the analogy of the flat tire is when you have a flat tire, you know which tire is flat.
Correct.
When we have thousands of meters out there, we don't know which ones are reading right and which ones aren't.
Very good point.
Well, if I may continue, I'll first say that, yeah, we don't want to throw out the baby with the bathwater. There's no doubt about that. But we could also be smart about it. You may not have a flat tire. You may just have a low tire. And all you got to do is put a little air in it, and you're going to maximize your mileage. But you don't replace the whole car because you have a low tire either. That said, with the numbers that you provided, 29 out of 68 that you tested, that's a 42% return. So 42% of the meters, you're saying that they tested and failed?
Correct. Or of 68, 42 of the 68 that we tested. So we would extrapolate that over the 5/8 by 3/4.
No, 29 of the 68,
Correct.
not 42 of the 68. 29 of the 68
Right.
had a problem,
Correct.
that they were not accurate.
Correct.
And I'm just curious what that, threshold of variance that was being the metric used for failure. So if there was a greater than 10% variance, then it was categorized as broken and junk. Or I'm just curious, what was that threshold that you guys used?
We use the AWWA standard, which says if a meter doesn't meet repaired meter or meter accuracy, then it's considered a bad meter.
By what percentage?
Which is basically 1.5%.
1.5%?
So if it's reading 98.5% or higher, you're doing good, right? 98.5 to 101.5. You've got meters reading 56%, 77%, 84%, 14%, 82%. Those are the ones we considered failure.
That's good information to know, because then you can scrub that data too. Again, I'm just trying to make sure that we don't make a sweeping decision that's highly costly to the city, when the solution might be solvable at a very economic level and a very incremental method that doesn't bankrupt the city and/or, for that matter, put the city in an unnecessary due stress of financing $3.5 million. Again, if the numbers had proven that, hey, all of our meters just are completely dilapidated and outdated, and we're just losing money, and for that matter, residents are overpaying, and it'd be a different conversation. But again, I'm not seeing that logic, and for that matter, that line of argument, and for that matter, I'm not even sure that the data supports it. So we're looking at 29 out of 68, but I'm wondering, out of that 29, what do we say? Like, we said the standard, what was the national standard that organization that you just referenced?
American Water Works Association.
So the American Water Works Association says that if you're greater than 1.5% of variance off of the true measure, then replace it. That's a really high threshold, or a low threshold, I should say, to qualify as a good and usable meter. I mean, if we think about, I hate to continue with the automobile analogy, or for that matter, any kind of other equipment that the city buys or leases, but if we get a 98.5% return on its use, I mean, I'm thinking about those golf courts. If we get 90% usage out of that golf court, that's pretty good. And I'm just curious, of these 29, where are we at 90% usage? Or for that matter, 85% usage. I would say anything below 80, right, maybe a B student. So if we have B student meters, anything less than that, well, maybe we want to operate on an A meter, so a 90% or higher. And I'm wondering what that number was. So of the 29, how many of those were 90 and above? And so maybe that then drops that number from 29 to, I don't know.
We should have had a workshop on this,
Yeah.
where we could have discussed it
I think we did.
prior to.
Just one person didn't show up,
Yeah, no, I was there.
Curious.
I was at the first one.
not the second one.
That's what this is for. It says discussion and possible action, but I'm not sure that any of the questions that I'm articulating were actually asked.
That's what the work session was for.
No, this is also part of that process. But if you guys don't want to, and you guys have seen the witness here, the mayor just wants to go ahead and summarily cut off any kind of logical questioning, it's your call, Jerry. I'm
So
just
just-
trying to make sure that the public understands the kinds of questions we need to be asking about this, so that we're not going down a rabbit hole of spending money that we don't need to, especially on the heels of us being told over the last 3 months that we don't have any money.
So financially, just for the public's record, this project, if you execute it, will generate almost $2 million of positive cash flow for the city over
Right.
a 15-year period. And that
Over a
includes all
15-year period.
financial cost and cover the cost of this project. It's the only project you probably will do that will self-fund itself and pay for itself.
The break-even point is at year 15.
No, sir. The break-even point is much sooner than that. It's positive $2 million almost in cash at year 15.
Right.
It's
Well,
generating $117,000 a year of positive cash flow for the city.
And then what is the break-even point then? What year is the break-even point? Is it 117 divided into 3.5?
No, sir. It's positive every single year. So I would have to run the math backwards, but you're basically paying for all your interest, all your principal, all your operating expenses, and you're basically still generating $120,000 every single year of positive cash flow for the city,
And if we
which will
don't,
allow you to do other projects that are needed in the budget to be done.
and if your calculations are wrong, you'll cut us a check.
So my calculations were based on all your 3 years worth of data. If the meters come back in accurate, then I will have to cut you a check. But we're hoping and guaranteeing that the meters will remain accurate, because that's what we guarantee.
If all of the meters were as problematic as being described, I'd be more inclined to move forward with this. But the logic and the reasoning, and for that matter, the measuring on this here is not science that I can stand on here. The metrics are not strong enough. And so that's what I have for that point. The second point I want to make is that since we've been in a transition here recently with the the departure of our CFO, who was also the department head of the water department, it's my understanding that we still need to make sure that and thank you, sir, that we also need to make sure that we get our house in order first before we move forward on any of these other projects as it relates to the water department. I'd like to make sure that our water department is at a steady state, that our staff knows how to use the current software, and that our billing issues are resolved, and we don't have residents and businesses.
There is going to be training
Well,
along with this.
We had training for the software that we have now for the water department, and there still is a training issue and a knowledge base issue because of the turnstile of manner of employment in the water department. So I'm hoping that we first get that settled at a steady state where everybody knows how to use the software, make sure that the billing is right, and then we can decide how.
We got to get it in place before they can learn how to use the software.
They already have the software. I'm talking about the current software.
The current software, I have met with each water clerk, and they are not requesting any more training.
I would like to see a higher percentage of.
Training
of-
in billing department is not what we're discussing tonight.
This is the water department, is what I'm talking
The
about.
billing in the water department is not what we're discussing tonight.
The
What we're
billing
discussing
component-
is
yeah.
replacement of the meters.
Yeah, but this is all going to touch the same staff. The same staff is going to be affected by this. And so there's going to still be cross-training, software training on the previous one that we purchased a year and a half ago, as well as this one if we should find the financing for it to do it as well. And I'm just saying, you know, I'm not sure why we're trying to push this so hard and fast right now when we still haven't let the dust settle on who's going to be leading these departments. And for that matter, whether these departments are actually stable. Because I guarantee you this, I mean, what are we going to say that, how should I phrase this? Are we confident enough to move forward?
Yes.
That our water department is operating at an efficient level, and what that efficient level number is,
Yes.
based on the number of disconnection notices this
We're
month?
not discussing competency in the water department, Councilman Pena. We're discussing meters.
If you're trying to buy a new car for the staff and the staff doesn't know how to drive, why are you buying them a car, Mayor?
Because we're throwing money away.
Exactly.
We're giving money
You're exactly-
away.
No, you said it right.
We
Flip and
are.
slip. You're throwing money away.
Every gallon of water that we distribute without getting paid for, we're throwing it away.
I'm looking at the metrics, and I'm looking who's doing the work. And I'm asking that we get both of them right, and they're not. That's all. Thank you,
I'm
Mayor.
looking at the money we're losing by not charging for the water that's being used.
It's going to be money wasted.
Council, any other questions or comments? Once again, we did have a good meeting last week about this. A lot of questions, a lot of comments, a lot of answers. So council, do you have anything else you want to add?
What was the check he gonna reimburse?
We don't know what that number is yet.
Oh, okay.
All right, all those in favor state aye. Aye. All opposed?
Absolutely not.
I'm sorry?
Absolutely not. Thank you.
Motion carries 4-1. Thank you, gentlemen, and thank you. Agenda item 4D, consideration and possible action to ratify the contract between the City of Freeport and the United States Department of Energy. Mr. Petty.
Yes, sir. Staff recommends the ratification of the contract. The U.S. Department of Energy has brought forward a 10-year contract in which the city provides their Strategic Petroleum Reserve Project water-only services. The contract was signed by the city manager on September the 19th, 2024. After a legal review, the federal government needed the contract signed before October the 1st, 2024 in order to have the contract funded. The contract was reviewed and approved by the city attorney. The U.S. Department of Energy had a 10-year contract with the city to provide water-only service to the Bryan Mound facility. The City Council approved an extension of the contract on August 19, 2024 to expire on September the 30th, 2024, and to extend the current 10-year contract. The U.S. Department provided a new 10-year contract. The U.S. Department of Energy pays the full rates for outside the city limits commercial customer. They average $10,800 per month, and they're obligated to $1.3 million per the contract per year.
Council, I will entertain a motion. Mr. Rollerson.
I want to ask a question on the contract with the Department of Energy. Is that only Bryan Mound, or is that LNG also within that?
Just Brian
Ms.
Mountain.
Brown, ma'am.
All right, I will entertain a motion.
Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the contract between the city of Freeport and the DOE.
We have a motion to approve by Councilman Matamoros. Is there a second?
Yeah, I'll second.
Second by Councilman Rosso. Council, any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor state aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you. Agenda item 4E, consideration and possible action approving resolution number 2024-2883, amending resolution number 2024-2880, nominating candidates for a position on the Board of Directors of the Brazoria County Appraisal District. Mr. Petty.
Yes, sir. A little bit of house cleaning here as far as amending the resolution. Ms. Carla Clark was appointed by council. She had made contact with City Hall and asked for her name to be removed from that board.
So, is there a motion to remove Ms. Carla Clark as a nominee?
She requested it, huh?
This is purely housekeeping. I think it makes sense to go ahead and take formal action to remove her.
Yeah.
But she's not going to serve anyway. She has no desire to serve, so I think it's just.
I'll make a motion to move.
We have a motion by Councilman Davis. Is there a second?
Yeah, I'll second that motion.
A second by Councilman Rosso. Any discussion needed, gentlemen?
Did she give a statement as to why she wanted to be removed?
No, sir.
All right. All those in favor to remove Ms. Carla Clark, state aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries 4-1.
Do you want to nominate somebody else?
No, we have someone else. We have,
Yeah, but you know what?
You have one on
She
there.
asked.
yes, we still have one on there. Agenda item 4F, consideration and possible action approving resolution number 2024-2884 to award the City of Freeport depository contract to the Texas Gulf Bank and allow the city manager to sign the contract.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
The city's current depository contract expires on November 30th of 2024. The city went out for RFA for depository services. Texas Gulf Bank is the depository that is being recommended to award the city's depository services. The city's had its depository services with Texas Gulf Bank for the past 5 years. The current contract expires on November 30th. As required by statute, the city went out for RFA and 5 responses were received. It was narrowed down to 2 banks, Texas Gulf Bank and Third Coast Bank. And we invited Third Coast Bank in for an interview. They're located in downtown Lake Jackson. After reviewing all of the services that they provided, staff is recommending that we stay with Texas Gulf Bank. They're located in Freeport and have provided excellent service over the past 5 years. As far as financial impact, Texas Gulf Bank offers no charges for their services, and we've included the interest revenue into the budget.
Thank you. Council, I will entertain a motion.
Make a motion.
We have
that
a motion
Accept it.
to approve by Councilman Rosso. Second,
I'll second.
I'll second.
Councilman Davis.
Yeah.
Councilman, any questions or comments?
Yeah.
Let's have it.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
All right. Just wanted to say welcome aboard and good luck to you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Hearing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor state aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Ferguson. Agenda item 4G, the second reading and consideration and possible action approving resolution number 2024-2881, the Local Business Improvement Grant Program. Mr. Johnson.
Good evening, council and mayor.
Good
How
evening.
y'all doing? All right. Mayor, may I do the honors again? A resolution of the city of Freeport, Texas, containing a preamble approving an economic development project to be enacted by the Freeport Economic Development Corporation, and providing that this resolution shall take effect and be in force from and after its passage and adoption. If you recall, we're discussing the business improvement grant. The staff is recommending to enact the grant. If you recall, the major change of the grant this year is we have upped it for this year alone from $150,000 to $300,000. I was dealing with application people coming into the office today to apply all day today, so there is a robust demand for this. Many people are trying to dig out from Hurricane Beryl.
Yeah, basically they're increasing the amount of monies that they're willing to give out due to the hurricane.
Right, and this is just for this year, Councilman Rosso. We don't anticipate this being ongoing for next year or anything like that. It's just to address this year's hurricane.
So at the end of the year, it's over?
Yes, at the end of the year, I mean,
Which calendar
obviously
year?
we'll look at next year unless there's something that happens next year, but I don't anticipate next year coming to the council and asking to approve $300,000. It's just for this fiscal year alone. Now, having said that, there might be something that happens and I come back, but I doubt it.
Yeah, it's not necessarily a calendar year, so this will go on until October, I guess it is.
It starts October and, goes to next. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
It's all barrel related?
The damage, now, we aren't saying it has to be, but because of the increased demand, we're still accepting normal applications, but because of the increased demand, and almost everyone that I've seen has been affected, is applying or has applied or is in the process of applying, is addressing a need because of Hurricane Beryl.
And once they apply, you guys go out and look at it, make sure that it's...
Yes, sir. We work with the applicant,
sorry.
and we work with the applicant, and then of course it's up to the pleasure of the board. They consider the application and the merits of that application.
Council, I will entertain a motion.
Mayor, I'm going to make a motion to approve this agenda item as presented.
We have a motion to approve by Councilman Matamoros. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Councilman Davis. Any other questions or comments for Mr. Johnson?
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
I second that. Can I put in an application? I need some help too. What, yes or no?
Yes, sir.
All right, all right.
Yeah, I
Take
got
all
a question.
comments.
When is it, did you say when it was up, the application? When are you gonna stop taking
It'll be
applications?
September 30th of next year.
Next
for-
year.
For this year, yeah. It's just gonna be one fiscal year.
Or until funds run out, correct.
Or, yes, thank you, Councilman. Or until funds run out, then we can't accept any more applications.
There's such a thing as too low or too high on the application?
There's guidelines as far as how much, you can't just apply for the whole pot. There's guidelines in separate categories for the different, for instance, property improvements is up to 10,000. It's a dollar for dollar match program.
Where you get the applications at?
From my office.
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
Just
sir.
letting the people know,
Yes,
But I
yes.
want to know too. though.
Is-
Yes. Or I can email them to the people too.
Does it matter if they already received the monies from
They cannot,
FEMA?
we are looking for them, the board has indicated that they are looking for, as I mentioned last time, the board is looking for them to exhaust all resources. That's one of the considerations that they're taking. It's not a mandate, but it's a consideration as they deliberate on it, that they go to FEMA, that they go to the Small Business Administration, that they go to their banks, insurance, et cetera. To quote one of the board members, we want to be the place of last stop, of last resort.
So you are the last resort?
Yes, and we've asked applicants, please produce your SBA documentation and your bank, not bank, I'm sorry, I meant insurance information to show that you've exhausted that and, checking those things.
Thank you.
Yep.
I have some questions, Mayor.
Yes, sir.
So I'm curious, there's a good question here. If somebody had applied for one of the grants previously, they're able to reapply?
Yes, as long as it's when you say previously, as long as it's a previous fiscal year, they can't get two in the same year.
Gotcha. So if they got approved in 22, 23, they can apply
They
for
could
the
apply
23.
for another one this year, yes,
No limitations other than the guidelines themselves?
other than the guidelines themselves.
Okay. I have three other questions here. The first one is, who is responsible for making sure that the money gets paid back if the business fails?
That's contract management 101, that's us.
So that provision, is that a new provision in this particular grant program, or has that been a staple for all of the grant programs since its inception?
I'm not sure, I can't speak to its inception, but it's been in the grant where there's clawback agreements that you have to stay in business for a year in order to receive the grant. And so, again, the routine grant administration monitors that.
Okay. Now, in terms of being in business, does that mean that a company's allowed to sell their business, number one? And then is that responsibility then transferred or forgiven? How does that work?
We've never run into that situation. It's a hypothetical. If they sold, it'd be something that the board would have to consider. As far as, that's never happened. But that would be something that would be deliberated upon, and we could say, well, we need the money back because this is a different business. But if it were just a new ownership, I think the intent of the grant is we want to sustain a business, and if ownership change, I'm just kind of speaking off the cuff here, that would be something that would be evaluated and say, well, the business is still extant.
Yeah, well, I'm all for making sure that we support the local businesses, the local mom and pops, making sure that they get every opportunity to these grants, number one. But I'm also making sure that we do our part as the city and the EDC, that we are in fact enforcing the same guidelines, not just on the approval, but on the execution, and for that matter, the responsibility if these businesses go under. And so my question to you, are you aware of any businesses right now that have received the grant in the last couple of years that you're aware that the provisions of clawbacks are in place that are out of compliance?
There are a couple that have happened, but I can't speak to it because it's under legal right now.
And so right now, we are, the EDC is pursuing the recollection of those funds that were granted previously?
Again, I can't discuss that, but
Well-
it's being reviewed by our legal.
Yeah, that's my question, is that, I've been made aware here in the city by residents and by businesses and by city staff that in fact there are businesses that have received these grants that have gone under. And there's the question of whether or not the city's going to get, or the EDC, the city, the taxpayers are going to get reimbursed those monies.
Right.
And so I'm hoping that there is a method in place, there's a process in place, and that's being followed through so that nothing falls through the cracks, so that, I go back to Realty World, nobody was doing the enforcement of making sure that they were actually getting their permits in place, and so that the street got built first versus the houses first. And so I'm wondering, who's in charge of that in the EDC? Is it a board member? Is it you or your staff?
It'd be me and my staff,
Okay.
does the contract administration of those grants and make sure that the rules and regulations of the grant are being followed.
Okay,
And
then
we do that.
are there like quarterly or monthly briefings on what the grant program is and who's on board and who's in default, or what kind of updates are being maintained to address the possibilities, or for that matter, making sure that all the award winners are actually complying?
If something comes up, we report it to the board, yes.
Okay, so at this point, every grant award winner over the last, I guess, in your tenure, has either followed through as it is in business, or if they failed to comply,
It's
are.
been brought to the attention of the board.
Okay, great. I wanted to be sure of that. The last question I have was, I'm just trying to understand the logic here so that the business owners in the community understand this. So you go to the SBA, you go to your local bank, and who's the other one?
We're looking, funding mechanisms, SBA, your bank, insurance,
Yeah.
you've all exhausted that.
So they go to FEMA, they go to the bank, they go
And
to
FEMA
the.
is typically
Sure.
dealing more with houses, so it'd be more the SBA than FEMA.
Okay, so
FEMA
they-
has a couple of emergency programs, but they're really not geared for business.
So they exhaust their insurance claims, they exhaust SBA, and they exhaust, what was the other one you had?
Banking. Banking?
Banking, yeah.
Loans.
And so if they're denied by those parties, why would the EDC be inclined to support them? Because typically, if a bank isn't going to support these guys to give them a loan because they're not financially viable to lend against to start their business, why would the EDC do that?
That's not what we said, though. That's not, we said we want to see them approved by a bank. We're trying to have them maximize all their resources, not if you get rejected by a bank, come to us. That's not the modus operandi behind that.
That's not what I heard, but so you're saying that if people are then denied by SBA or their bank or their insurance, then the EDC is really.
No, I didn't say denied. I did not say denied. I said we're looking for them to go to them and exhaust so that they can get all that they can get before they come to us.
Let me give you the example. If a business goes to the bank and or SBA and or through their insurance and they're not able to get any funding, is it fair to them to say, hey, come to the EDC, we'll still provide funding?
Well, that's not what we're saying, but the board would consider that and probably say this might be a risk, or, I don't know what the board would do, but they take that into consideration. However, having said that, that's not what we were saying. We're saying we'd like you to go to these places to get as much as you possibly can before you come to the EDC.
All I'm trying to get at is what your risk assessment policy and what your qualifying policy is, because it seems relatively ambiguous at this point. And so I'm trying to get some clarity on that. And at this point, I'm not sure that I have full clarity on it, other than you're personally reassuring or making the assurance that they can still come to the EDC so long as they went to the SBA. We're not talking about whether they got approved or not approved. Come to us, as long as you went to go talk to Mr. Smith at SBA, and if you went to go speak to Mr. Parker at your bank, whether you got approved or not, come back to us, and we might consider it anyway. So you're saying it's kind of a very subjective policy?
The board considers different loans, but there's not a, again, the policy isn't if you get rejected by the bank, come to us.
It is or is not?
It is not.
Okay.
Thank you, Councilman. Anyone else?
You said loan or grant? Which one is it?
It's a grant.
It's a grant.
It's a dollar for dollar, so they match a dollar, we match a dollar.
But it's got clawback provisions.
Yes.
Like a loan.
I'm sorry, what?
Like a loan does. It's got
It's
clawback
got
provision.
clawback
Because it's got
provisions. It has to.
performance requirements.
Yes, performative requirements.
So, council, I'm going to call the vote. All those in favor state aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries 4-1.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Agenda item 4H, consideration and possible action approving resolution number 2024-2885, deeming body-worn camera system surplus and donating to local agency. Ms. Howe.
Good evening, council.
Good evening.
I have two different items for tonight. The first one is regarding our body-worn cameras. Recently, we had obtained a new grant for the updated body-worn cameras. Our previous ones were listed as end of life. And so now that we have those items replaced and everything, we were looking to be able to deem those forward to another agency that was in need of those. Reaching out and everything, Alvin ISD had reached out and requested those body-worn cameras, and so I'm here to ask council tonight to deem those surplus, so that we could forward those to the Alvin ISD Police Department.
Thank you, Chief. Council, I will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion. Second.
Councilman Davis, jump out in there.
Good.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
A second by Councilman Pena. Council, any discussion needed? Questions for Chief?
Yeah, I got a question.
Yes, sir.
You said those cameras have expired?
They're
What does that mean?
They're classified as end of life, meaning the manufacturer will no longer repair them.
Oh, they're
So
out of
once-
warranty.
So once they break, that's it, they're broken. And so you can't get them updated, you can't get them repaired, which is why we went for a new grant to be able to get updated cameras that would be in warranty that were able to be repaired.
Yeah, this is just a question. How are they gonna be able to use them if they can't be repaired or they can't be replaced?
So they have that system currently, and so as they have ones that break, they're not able to replace them. With having our additional ones, they'll be able to, have those in, so when they have one break, they can take one of our used ones to replace. They unfortunately just don't have the funding to be able to purchase new ones at this time.
Thank you.
So an old one is better than not one at all.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
So along that same line of questioning, I'm thinking about the feasibility and functionality of these systems for any police department. Obviously, we're not able to use them on our force because they're being considered defective and not usable.
We were still using them, and we would still use them, but since we received a grant to be able to purchase new ones, then it was a great opportunity to be able to move forward with new ones, and then that way when we had the other ones break, we just didn't have a box of broken cameras. And having 32 staff and then the camera numbers dwindling down, then the cameras don't start being able to make a full shift, and so in the middle of the shifts, the officers have to come back to the department, put one on to charge, because it turns into sharing cameras instead of cameras that are individually issued.
I was a little confused. You had said, first of all, that they were defective, and so that's why we were trying to pursue the new ones, but now you're saying there's new ones, and so as some of the cameras are becoming defective or breaking down, then we're replacing those? Are they defective, or are they working, or which one is it? I'm a little unclear.
They're what's classified as end of life.
End of life.
And
Okay.
so therefore the manufacturer considers them where they will no longer service them. For the manufacturer, they're considered defective, null and void, just because we don't replace them, we don't repair them, we don't make the parts for them anymore. And so they move on to their newer camera systems. That's how they stick it to you.
I gotcha. The question I have here, on the same idea here, and this might be a legal question, or maybe I just watched a lot of Matlock or a lot of Hill Street Blues, but I'm thinking about somebody gets arrested body cam is going, there's some lawsuit saying, well, the camera's defective, you know, what was it covering? And so it becomes a liability to the police department. And so why would another police department want to assume either the dysfunctional equipment or that additional liability? And I would think that they wouldn't.
Because again, it's better than having nothing at all. That's even a bigger liability. And so they're at least trying to be able to have cameras. They know that there's a chance that the camera's going to stop functioning, but you got a higher probability of having those videos as compared to having nothing at all.
All right. No further questions.
I would run the chance of our guys having something as compared to nothing at all, for sure.
Got it.
How many cameras you talking about?
I'm sorry?
How many cameras that we're gonna get new?
Oh, that we're getting new? We got 35 new ones.
And each officer has his own camera?
Correct.
Any other questions, council?
Yes. Thank you, Chief, for bringing this up to us. So I do have some questions.
Yeah.
Being in IT, knowing what EOL, end of life is, and then knowing that we're giving it to a ISD, it makes me a little leery. A lot of the questions that were asked by our previous council, I had. So when we donate these, we're donating everything that pertains to them, correct? Such as cameras, transfer stations, it says Wi-Fi, HD bases, magnetic mounts and clips.
Yes, anything that was with the body-worn camera system, we provide them all of that.
Okay. So in doing so, being in IT, knowing that these devices have firmware that could be different, we may have one version of firmware, newest. Alvin ISD may have an older version.
Correct.
If it's end of life and they can't update it, there's going to be an issue, okay? And so that's where I'm leery of, because I don't want to donate an item and it fails in the middle of a critical situation. I don't want it to then come back and say, well, Freeport knew it was end of life and they donated it to them. And so that's where I'm having some trepidation with this, knowing
Right.
that it's end of life and my background. As I read within the resolution, it does state that we're given these as is. We're not,
And we also type up an additional document that they have to sign for it at that time as well, like we have with any other surplus equipment. So not only, they're provided a copy of the resolution, and then also they have to sign acknowledging and confirming that they're releasing liability from the city.
okay. And so of all these devices that we're donating, how many of these are working? Are all of these working, or are they damaged and we're just donating parts?
I don't have those numbers, so I can't tell you that for sure. So there is a mix of working, there's a mix of some that's damaged, that has parts, because just like, I'm sure Alvin ISD PD does the same as any other PD does. I know for us, we'll take a knob off of this one because it doesn't work, but this one's missing a knob, and then we take the button off of this one because this one's missing a button, but that device isn't working, and try to Frankenstein some things, if you will. So I don't know how many of these are working and how many are for parts.
Okay. And the equipment that we're donating, we are wiping it, doing some type of.
Yes.
Yes, we do.
All of our videos are cleared from them prior to, well, they're actually cleared at the end of every shift, but before taking them out of service and everything, our IT detective had went through everything and made sure everything was cleared out before we got ready for this.
Okay. And then the base, all of our network settings and that are being cleared out
Yes.
of that?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
I would assume there's full disclosure with Alvin ISD, so they are more than aware of what we are donating.
Oh, yes, they know their end of life, and that's why they asked for them, just because it's the same system that they have, but they don't have the money or didn't get a grant or didn't apply, I don't know which one, to be able to buy a new system, so.
So from what I'm hearing, that is one of the major concerns, and
Yes, that's a
And
major
if-
concern, and it's
if-
also who it's going to.
Right.
Those are my two big
Oh, no,
concerns.
absolutely.
but if, in my opinion, if they're aware that this is not an iPhone 16, it's an iPhone 5 that they're getting,
Yeah.
they can still make a phone call, they can still take pictures, they can
But it's, I
play
mean,
some of the apps.
it's honestly I mean, we have brand-new cameras, but is there a chance that while I'm using my brand-new camera, that it could also go down and not record a major critical incident? Absolutely.
Yep.
I mean, that's welcome to technology. It, it works sometimes and sometimes it doesn't, but at least with that situation, yes, we'd have a warranty to be able to get it replaced, but it wouldn't change the critical incident and missing the video out on that.
Chief, what's the total grant amount for the new ones?
Oh, I don't remember. I'd have to go back and look at that.
So what's the total price tag for the new systems? We don't know that number.
Yeah, I've been doing budget stuff all day today, so
Yeah.
I don't want to, I have lots of numbers in the head, so I don't want to tell you wrong.
The second question I would have is, what's the assessed value of the current systems that we're donating, or looking to donate?
It wouldn't have an assessed value since it's end of life, so,
It's been fully depreciated.
yeah.
So council, I'm gonna call the vote. All those in favor state aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Chief.
I'm up next again.
Consideration and possible action approving Resolution 2024-2886, deeming an in-car camera system surplus and donating to a local agency.
So again, this is a part of where we obtained the grant. We had the body-worn cameras, and then we also replaced the in-car cameras. And so the previous in-car cameras are part of the same vendor. However, Angleton PD had requested those. So it just so happened they didn't need the body cams, but they needed the in-car, where Alvin ISD needed the in-car and not, or needed the body cams and not the in-car. So we're asking for these items to be deemed surplus and to be able to donate these for Angleton PD.
Thank you, Chief. I will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion.
We have a motion to approve by Councilman Davis. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Rosso. So gentlemen, pretty much same situation. Car cameras going to Angleton is the main difference. Any questions or comments?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
It seems that all the surrounding cities get our trained police officers and all of our equipment. Do we get anything?
So I will tell you that, since I've been here, we've been very fortunate to, get several grants. And so we've been lucky to be able to get some new things. But I have been informed and everything that there's a number of things that we've previously received from the sheriff's office, from Pasadena Police Department. So I know that things have been paid forward before. Just like I said, we've lucked into the opportunity for some good grants. Thanks to Detective Fernandez again for going aggressively after those, for sure.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief.
Council, anything else?
I'm just going to ask one last
No,
time.
you're good, go ahead.
Everything's been wiped from
Yes.
these devices?
Yes, sir. If you want to come by and test, I'll even let you.
I don't know if Phillips would like that.
No?
Well, I will call the vote. All those in favor state,
Can I tell us something?
I'm sorry. You ain't gotta yell at me.
No, hold on a second, let me talk.
Come on.
Hey, no, it ain't even, we don't have a work session, but, so I want to say, thank you, for all that y'all been doing. When I called the other day about a funeral escort, that person that had died, that was somebody that the police department had checked on during the storm, and his wife wanted me to let y'all know that she really appreciated it because y'all stopped by more than one time, and checked on and offered to bring them drinks and food if they needed anything. And they 90-some years old. And, she just wanted me to tell y'all thank you for all that y'all were doing. Y'all were riding and, just thank y'all for, what y'all were doing.
Thank
So
you.
if you can
I will
relay
pass that
that to
along.
your
Absolutely.
bosses for you.
Yeah, I got something. I must put this on the record. It's more blessed to give. You fill in the blank.
Yes.
All right, gentlemen, with that, I will call the vote. All those in favor state aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you so much,
you.
Chief. Agenda item 4J, consideration and possible action approving resolution number 2024-2887, updating the city bank account signatories. Ms. Ferguson.
Again. Texas Gulf Bank requires a resolution designating which city officials are authorized to make transactions. This resolution would remove the former finance director, Kathy, from the list of signatories and then just leave the mayor, Mr. Petty, and myself on the account as the contacts that are able to make transactions. So we would recommend approving the resolution.
Council, I will entertain a motion.
Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2024-2887.
We have a motion to approve by Councilman Matamoros. Is there a second?
Yeah, I'll second.
Seconded by Councilman Rosso. Any questions or comments, council? Hearing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor state aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. 4K, consideration and possible action approving Resolution 2024-2888, amending designated signatories for the city's tax pool account.
This is going to be the same situation for our investment account held with TexPool. By updating to have the former finance director, Kathy, removed, it leaves Mr. Petty and myself listed as representatives with full access, and then it leaves you, Mayor, with the inquiry access only. So we would recommend approving the resolution.
Council, I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2024-2888.
We have a motion to approve by Councilman Matamoros. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Councilman Davis with the second. Any questions or comments needed?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Ferguson, I'm curious, how many signatures are needed for any of these particular transactions on the city's tax pool account?
I can verify and make sure. I'm pretty positive that it's 2, but I personally haven't done a transaction
Okay.
to tell you that.
And I meant to ask the same question on the city bank account signatory. It's also 2?
The city account is just 1, and then the bank calls to verify.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Actually, Mayor, I'm curious, do we need to have a provision where we have at least 2 people signing? And is there language in that so that we avoid a Covarrubias situation?
You talking about with TexPool? Okay, so that's on, and that's part of our agreement with TexPool. This is simply just a resolution authorizing the signatories. But I could pull that agreement just to verify and make sure that it's part of that, but they're gonna have conditions of participating in their pool.
Okay.
And one of those conditions is the participants would have designated authorized signatories. So they'll have all that outlined.
Okay, so a minimum of 2?
But we're happy to take a look at the agreement just to verify that.
Can we also make sure that's agreement on the bank account too?
Agreement, the bank account's just one. But we can look at their depository bank agreement. There is an agreement, and I can be happy to provide that to council for review.
But right now, it's just one, Mayor?
I'm not certain.
I'm not certain either. That's just what was.
On the city account, there are certain transactions that does take 2, I apologize. But for me to send an ACH file or initiate a wire, that is a 2-person. Someone has to initiate, someone has to approve.
And is there a threshold too?
500,000, yes, sir.
So anything above 500,000 requires 2?
Anything above 500,000 requires bank approval,
Mm.
which is by phone, not digital and quick.
I thought there was a threshold of $50,000 for the city manager, and then after that, that requires
It was
multiple
actually,
signatures. 30?
it was actually reduced to 30.
Yeah, so it's 30,000, and then after that, is it 2 signatures?
Then it has to go to a bid, advertise for bid.
Okay.
Yes, sir, so.
I just want to make sure we have that provision in all of our accounting. Thank you.
So council, I'll call the vote. All those in favor state aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. You and me both. Agenda item 4L, consideration and possible action approving the CDBG co-op grant agreement between Brazoria County and the city of Freeport. Ms. Ferguson.
This grant was applied for back in April of 2024 with the county CDBG program for $220,000. This would fund the installation of 2 12-inch valves and 19 8-inch valves at multiple locations throughout the city. We were approved to receive that in grant funding with a service period of October 1st, 24 to December 31st of 25. The city historically has participated in this grant program, and we received the funds from HUD. I apologize. The county receives the funds from HUD and then allocates those to participating cities. We would have to pay $8,000 in addition to that $220,000 to fund the entire project that we applied for and what was approved for. Staff would recommend approving and signing the agreement to accept the grant funding.
And the $8,000 additional was included in the budget.
Yes, sorry. Yes.
Council, I will entertain a motion.
Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the grant agreement.
We have a motion to approve by Councilman Matamoros. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Councilman Davis. Mr. Petty, what are the benefits of putting these valves?
To enable the water department to be able to isolate sections of lines when they have emergency line repairs. Veolia did mark up the map of where they have deficiencies with isolation, and it will cut down on, if you'll notice, sometimes they have a water main break and they have to shut down half the city. So this helps them isolate just certain areas instead of having to kill a large section of the city.
That's the answer I was hoping you were going to say. Council, any other questions or comments on this? Hearing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor, state aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank y'all.
Thank you. Agenda item 4M, consideration and possible action to award the bid for Freeport Municipal Golf Course structure replacement to Tracon and have the city manager sign the contract. Mr. Rago.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Staff recommends awarding contract to Tracon. On September 19, 2024, bids were opened for request for proposal number 2024-09, Freeport Municipal Golf Course Structure Replacement. Traycon was the lowest bidder with $71,635. The city of Freeport solicited proposals for repair to the golf course. These repairs are for the damage caused by Hurricane Beryl. The city advertised request for proposal on September 3rd, 2024, and September 10th, 2024. On the 19th of September 2024, the city received two proposals. Traycon was the lowest at $71,635. Traycon has done work for the city on many occasions, and the city has been happy with their work. Financial impact, the city will apply for a FEMA grant for this project, which will pay 75% of the project if awarded. The funding for this will come from the fund balance.
Council, I will entertain a motion.
Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve and the bid for the Freeport Municipal Golf Course and have the city manager sign the contract.
We have a motion to approve by Councilman Matamoros. Is there a second?
Yes, I'll second it.
Councilman Rosso with the second. Any questions or comments, council?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Was that in the budget? Was that in the budget plan?
This was damage from Hurricane Beryl, so FEMA will be paying 75% of the repairs, and then the city will be paying for the remainder, 25%, and then we'll be coming back to council with a budget amendment at a later date for these repairs, since we have so many throughout the city.
So FEMA's not guaranteed, or, I mean, you know, is that?
Yeah, they'll cover 75% of it, but we'll have to
They
pick
said
up the
they will.
remaining 25%. Yeah, we've submitted all of our documents and everything, and we're working closely with them to cover these expenses.
Got another question, Mayor.
Yes, sir.
So I'm curious, who's managing this project that Traycon's going to be facilitating or implementing? Is that going to be Public Works or the Golf Department?
Public Works will be overseeing the project.
Yeah, I was just kind of curious why the golf director wasn't asking for this or facilitating this. Is that typically because it goes through Public Works exclusively?
Yes. Typically, Public Works has the knowledge and experience to oversee projects like this.
Okay. I'm just trying to get a sense of how the projects, in terms of repairs to the city structures, buildings, roofs, golf course, and who that falls upon. I know that last year, the conversation was had, who handles a lot of these projects, and I think they fell to you, and that was because you were the assistant city manager. Or was that because you were the director of Public Works? Or
I was both.
But had you been one or the other?
More the latter, because of
Yeah.
his relationship with Public Works, to oversee these types of projects.
It wasn't a legal question, it was just a logistical, organizational question, but thank you. So had you been Public Works Director, you would have facilitated all those anyway?
Absolutely.
Okay, I was just curious. No further questions, thank you.
Any other questions, council? Now we'll call the vote. All those in favor state aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Agenda item 4N, consideration and possible action to award the bid to Hogg Construction Services for Freeport Municipal Park structure replacements and have the city manager sign the contract.
Staff recommends awarding the bid to Hogg Construction. On September 20th, 2024, the city received proposal for FRP 2024-10, Freeport Municipal Park Structure Replacement. Hogg Construction Services was the lowest bidder with a bid of $38,477. The city of Freeport solicited for request for proposal for Freeport Municipal Park Structure Replacement. This project for Hurricane Beryl damage. The city advertised the RFP on September 4th, 2024, and September 11th, 2024. On September 20th, 2024, the city received 3 proposals. Hawkins Construction submitted the lowest bid of $38,477. The city will apply for FEMA grant for this project. If the city is awarded the grant will cover 75% of the project. The cost of this project will come out of fund balance.
Council, I will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion.
I have a motion to
Approve.
approve by Councilman Pena. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Councilman Davis. Any questions or comments?
Yeah, I was curious, when you were mentioning the Tracon contract previously, you made mention that Tracon had done work for the city previously, and I'm curious, is that also true for Hog Construction?
They've done some other construction projects, some light construction, nothing major, but they did have a very good list of structures that they've done in the pamphlet that they turned into their RFP. They had a lot of
Good
recommendations.
experience and recommendations. And
Yes.
I wasn't sure what the due diligence was on Hog, or for that matter, any contractor that we've done work with or haven't done work with. I'm always skittish about new contractors, mostly because even with our tried and true ones,
I believe in the past, and don't quote me on this, I know he has some relationships with some of the guys that I knew within the city that worked for me, and he came very highly recommended.
well, I appreciate that. I'm just curious, did we do the due diligence in terms of whether they were, and I meant to ask this on Tracon, if they were insured and bonded?
I believe that's all in the RFP.
It is, okay. And so the insurance and the bonding is verified, is that right?
The insurance is verified. They're not required to be bonded unless it's $150,000.
Thank you. Okay, so insurance is verified, so we're good to go on that. Thank you.
Yes, sir. It will be, everything will be verified a second time before we issue a notice to proceed.
Wonderful. No further questions.
Council, I'll call the vote. All those in favor state aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. 4O, consideration and possible action to award the bid for Freeport Riverside Park roof replacements to Tracon and have the city manager sign the contract. Rudy, you gonna take this?
Might as well.
You're already up there.
Staff recommends approval. On October 1st, 2024, bids were opened for request for proposal number 2024-12, Freeport Riverside Park roof replacement. Tracon was the only bidder with $71,465. The city of Freeport solicited proposals for repair on the Riverside park roofs. These repairs for damage caused by Hurricane Beryl. The city advertised requests for proposal on September 11th, 2024, and September 18th, 2024. On October 1, 2024, the city received 1 proposal. Tracon submitted a proposal for the amount of $71,465. Tracon has done work for the city on many occasions, and the city has been happy with their work. The city will apply for a FEMA grant for this project. Will pay 75% of the project if awarded. The fund for this will come from the fund balance.
Council, I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, I make a motion to approve the contract and have the city manager sign said contract.
We have a motion to approve by Councilman Matamoros. Is there a second?
Yes, I'll second.
Seconded by Councilman Rosso. Any discussion needed?
I have a couple of questions.
Yes, sir.
This Riverside roof replacement, there's two questions I have. The first one is, this Riverside Park roof replacement, which roof are we specifically talking about?
These are the press boxes at the ball fields.
One too far.
Where are we at? 4-0?
Yeah, O is for,
Riverside Park?
yeah, it's for the, should be for the press boxes, the
Yeah, it's
concession
for the,
stand,
it's for
and
the press boxes, concession
and the
stands
maintenance
at
vault-
Riverside Park.
So how many structures?
4, I believe.
Do we know how many squares of roofing that is and what type of roofing that is?
They are all shingle roof, but I haven't got the correct measurements on it right now.
What would you say is the biggest roof in terms of linear footage?
Linear footage is probably gonna be the maintenance barn. It's got 2 garages on it as well as the bathroom building.
So what, maybe like 20 by 20,
No, sir, it's bigger than that.
You gotta
I
yell at me.
roughly guesstimated maybe a 40 by 60.
40 by 60? All right. That passes my sniff test. I'm just trying to make sure that, we're talking about structures. I was thinking it was, some small pavilion that was 20 by 20, and now we're spending 71,000 for a roof on a 20 by 20 roof, which makes absolutely no sense, but
Right. It's
those
4
numbers
different
jive.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
numerous structures, and one of them at the senior field, the roof actually came completely off the building that they have to rebuild back, so.
That was my first question. The second question I had is, I know we only had one bid. Is there anything that we can do to improve the participation?
As of right now, with all the contractors that are so busy right now, a lot of them just aren't bidding because they have so much work they can't get to.
Is that right? Okay. Thank you. No further questions.
Any other questions, gentlemen? Hearing none, we'll call the vote. All in favor, state aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Agenda item 4P, consideration and possible action to award the bid for Freeport dugout roofing structure replacements to Tracon and have the city manager sign the contract.
Staff recommends awarding the contract to Tracon. On September 3rd, 2024, bids were opened for request for proposal 2024-13, Freeport dugout roofing structure replacement. Tracon was the only bidder with a bid of $45,480. Background information, the city of Freeport solicited proposals for repair for the Freeport dugout roofing structure replacement at Riverside Park and Stephen F. Austin Park. These repairs are for the damage caused by Hurricane Beryl. The city advertised request for proposal on September 17th, 2024, September 24th, 2024, and on October 3rd, 2024, the city received one proposal. Tracon was the only bidder at $45,480. Tracon has done work with the city on many occasions, and the city has been happy with the work. The city will apply for a FEMA grant for this project, which will pay 75% of the proposed project if awarded. The funding for this will come out of the fund balance.
Council, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the Freeport dugout roofing structure replacement.
All right, we have a motion to approve by Councilman Davis. Is there a second?
I'll second that with the addendum to have the city manager sign the contract.
Seconded by Councilman Matamoros. Any discussion or questions, comments?
Yeah, I actually, this reminds me of a contract situation that we had a couple of years ago, and we awarded construction of street repairs or park repairs to the rec center, to the boat ramp, and I think over at the Velasco House as well, to one contractor, and the dollar per square foot seemingly was arbitrary, nothing was consistent. And so I thought, well, guys, here we have one contractor that's getting every deal. Number one, why aren't we getting the same dollar per square foot for each one? And then the discussion was, well, it's different depths, et cetera, et cetera. I said, well, if you're gonna get more than two, then maybe then there's a discount afforded to the city, and maybe there's a threshold, like all of a sudden you're into an automatic pricing. And I just wonder if that's not something that we can go back and ask Tracon to say, hey, we're giving you all these contracts. Is there a discount that you can give the city on this?
Well, doing an FRP, I don't think you can do it that way.
Yeah.
Because each item has.
No, really, the only time you're in a position where you negotiate is when you do a request for qualifications, like with an engineer and architect. These are sealed responses, so in all fairness to everybody else, we're really not in a position to negotiate a lower contract after the award.
And the contractor's trying to get a job through an RFP. They pretty much have shot their lowest prices at us as well, so.
So unless it's an RFQ, it's not doable.
Correct. And again, that's not only for the fairness of the process, but to all the other people that submit proposals too, that they're putting their best foot forward, and we have to take everybody on a level playing field.
Well, I'm just saying, when we have,
I get it. The best way we could have handled that would be to couple them as part of the same request and see if we get some sort of discount, but we really can't alter the proposal as submitted.
but like you said, maybe going forward, we pull them so that we might be able to
I'm
negotiate
not
the
sure
pricing.
there's enough economies of scale here to matter, probably not.
Well,
but-
when they are there.
If they're there, absolutely, that's something we talk about.
All right.
Any other questions, council, or comments? Hearing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor state aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rudy. It is now 8:09, and we are closing the regular session and opening executive session. 551071 Texas Government Code, consultation with the attorney. 5A, executive session regarding A, consultation with the attorney, industrial contracts. Number 2, audit discussion, and 3, water rates pursuant to section 551.071.